I am joined now by Brandon Shippy, who is running for the state Senate over in District 9. So, without any further ado, Brandon, can you tell us about yourself, where you come from, and how you arrived at this place where you're standing for public office?
Yeah, hey Brian, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Yeah, my family moved out of Oklahoma in I believe it was in the 50s, early 50s. Samuel Shippey settled in Weezer and opened a small business there. Was a land leveler. They leveled most of the farms around the area, really throughout District 9. And that was my great grandfather. My grandfather was Terry Shippey. He was a farmer from New Plymouth and also poured concrete ditch, um, dairy work. Those he worked in that industry a lot. And then my father was Darren Shippey, and he was a gopher trapper. He worked. In fact, he worked very closely with a lot of the old farmers around here, um, the Henglers and the Limbaughs, Sir Myers, a lot of those folks. He worked really closely with them, did a lot of business with them. Then he went into landscaping, and that's what I grew up doing. I was about 10 years old when he went into landscaping, and so most of my skills in the trade of landscaping are in irrigation and plant management, those type of things. So I currently own a sprinkler contracting business, Shippy Sprinkler LLC, and I've got a couple of employees, and we do really well with. There's a lot of work out here. I really don't even have to advertise, and yeah, it's just it. There's just a lot of work. Of course we're desert here, and so we irrigation is a big deal for our area. A little bit about myself. I'm married to my wife Raquel. Been married for almost 16 years now. It'll be 16 years next June, this coming June. I've got three kids: a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. Um, we I'm a Christian. I'm a deacon at my church, and yeah, a little bit about myself. I'll talk a little bit about my volunteer work. Um, I currently serve as a precinct committeeman for Payette County Republican Central Committee. I am for Precinct 8. I'm also on the State Central Committee. I'm a youth state committeeman. They allow you to be youth until you're 40, so I'm currently 35, and I also do serve a little more recently on the Idaho Virtual Academy
Hmm.
school board. I'm a director on there as well, and so that's been a good experience. Really great folks there to work with, and so yeah, those are some of my volunteer efforts and a little bit about myself.
Well, that sounds great. So, why are you stepping up to get into politics?
So my background was very apolitical. My the Shippey family. In fact, I posted an article. I don't know, probably several months ago at least, of my fourth great grandfather, I think his name was Abraham Shippey, somewhere in there. He died, I think, in 1901 in the Oklahoma Territory. And he was the last known Shippey to be involved in politics. And he said it's all crooks, and it's a lost cause. And so he got out of it. And
That sounds familiar.
ever since then, the Shippies have been very apolitical. You leave government alone, government leaves you alone. That's kind of the goal. And I began to be motivated to be involved in politics. I think starting in more like the 2018 era. I'm not one of those privileged people that grew up being active in politics like many other folks have, but kind of took it on myself to really pursue that. In 2000, and so that was in 2018. Started getting involved a little bit, and then in 2020, I think it was around 2021, I met a gentleman by the name of Howard Reinerson. He's the GOP chair for Payette County. He's been a really good friend, just getting me involved in the local party there, in GOP politics, and I grew up in this area. I've been around this area my entire life. Born and raised in Payette County, but just never involved in politics. And so it's been really good to be involved in that side of our community here, and was supporting different conservative candidates in the 2022 election cycle, and did not anticipate that I would be running for Senate in 2022, that I'd be running in 2024. And I was approached by a number of individuals asking if I would consider that. And a lot of people liked my leadership skills, that I was approachable. I'm a good listener. I'm well grounded in the area. I'm very conservative. Um, and yet I'm somebody that anybody can approach and be willing to come to the table and have a conversation with. And so a lot of people really wanted me to run, considered it, decided to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring there. We announced back in July and started fundraising, did really well with our fundraising. A lot of people were really excited about my candidacy. And I think today we've raised close to $80,000 in money, I guess, and then some in kind as well, which I understand is fairly significant in Idaho. But we knew it was going to be an expensive race. It's a large district. It's not very walkable, and so we knew we're going to have to spend quite a bit of money on direct voter contact, to those type of things. And so we laid a really good foundation, I think, with our campaign early on. We've made a lot of voter contact already, and my name is well known in the district already. My family was well known, well respected, and so it really has not been hard to build a lot of support, and it's been good. There are some it's ups and downs, but for the most part, it's been very positive. And it's even just the door knocking. Honestly, we've got a lot of people knocking, and folks who have knocked with other candidate campaigns in the past, and they said we've never went to the door on so many different doors, random doors, that they know the name of the candidate already from other ways, not in politics, but
Hmm.
from other means. So it's going really well. Sorry for long-winded answer there. I'll kind of wrap that up there and let you kind of direct your show.
Oh no, that's good. That's why we're here to learn about you and what motivates you. Couple questions that came to mind. Uh, Obviously, you were initially running against an incumbent, but then about halfway through the session, she announces she's not going to run for reelection, and so someone else jumps in, actually a former legislator.
Mhm.
And how does that change the way you campaign? Instead of campaigning against an incumbent, now it's essentially an open seat, or are you just continuing to do the same thing?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. There were a lot of folks in district that had were very dissatisfied with the incumbent, whether it was we just can't seem to get an ear, to we don't feel like our voices are heard, or we feel like she's voting with the Democrats on certain issues that we really feel are not representing our values out here in District 9. There were a lot of reasons why uh, much of the constituency had concerns, which led me to consider running. And when we knew to take on an incumbent, it would take a lot of money, it would take a lot of momentum, and so we ran hard. We ran hard for months and months, and we were a little bit surprised when she announced that she was not going to be seeking reelection. I do not know the true motivation for her exiting the race. It seemed a little odd that it was so late, which made it hard for anyone else to step up and oppose me. Excuse me, because we had been working so long at it. But our approach has been one of promoting our positions, promoting the message that we bring, rather than just you know attacking my opponent. And so that really didn't change a lot, because we're continuing to do that. Obviously, we know that we're running against somebody else that does not have the incumbent advantage. His name is not as well known in the district, and frankly, many of her supporters have actually now come and are openly supporting me, um, even though presumably she is supporting my opponent. She announced she was not seeking reelection the next day he announced he was running for election. And I do believe there was an article out there where he said she had asked him to run. I believe that's out there. I'm not sure. And so it is interesting that a number of her supporters, former supporters, have now come over and want to support me. Uh, they believe I'm the better candidate for the job, and that I will serve the people of District 9 um, better. I'm more approachable. I'm a better listener. Those type of things is what we're hearing a lot from the folks who have been involved in politics for decades. And um, so anyway, it's taken on an interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Sure. So I had the pleasure of heading out just a few days ago to Payette for a Republican Women's Club.
Hmm.
Got to talk to them about what's going on in party politics and such. Good to see people wanting to be involved. Um, you've got a large district. I'm looking at the map over here. Washington County, Payette County, bit of Canyon County, the more rural half, I guess. What are the unique challenges that your district faces, and what are the unique issues that you've heard from voters in your district that might not be the same as the rest of the state?
One of the challenges, of course, is the large district. If you're familiar with the area, it encompasses all of Washington County, all of Payette County, and a big portion of Canyon, which stretches from beyond Greenleaf. So Highway 55 in Canyon County, the highway that goes from Nampa out to Marsing, it goes from there, and it kind of ends at the Snake River, right at the Sunny Slope Market, and then it goes all the way to Brownlee Dam along the Snake River. So it's a long stretch of land. It includes Cambridge, Midvale, Weiser, um, Payette, Fruitland, New Plymouth, Parma, Wilder, Greenleaf, and a big portion of Notice. There are a lot of small towns, a lot of rural areas. There are a lot of homes in the district that are not very walkable. You've got to drive from home to home if you want to go door knocking. So that it just creates a lot of challenges that smaller districts, more densely populated, have. And then just as far as the uniqueness of our district, it's there are a lot of different, like let's say down in the Parma Wilder area, there are a lot of seed farms, whether it's Weber Farms. I know them really well. Alfalfa seed. In fact, I used to clean their alfalfa seed. I was a seed plant manager for a time, and I know those guys really well. Used to clean their alfalfa seed. And then you have the hop farms, which make up a large part of the southern end of the district. And then you get into the Payette area. There are a lot of lowlands, kind of irrigated pasture cattle ranches. There are a lot of hay fields, a lot of wheat, beets. As far as the agriculture difference. And then as you get up into the foothills, into Midvale and Cambridge, you have a lot of grazing ranchers. So you're going to have a lot of sheep ranchers, a lot of cattle ranchers, and then you have Weiser, which is a unique place. It's a kind of a retiree hotspot, and so the the makeup of the people of Weiser are kind of a little bit older, and a lot of folks that have moved in from maybe Alaska or various places in the country. They're close to Boise, close to hospitals, but far enough away so that they can have a little bit of peace and quiet. And so there are a lot of differences from one end of the district to the other. I know the district really well because my father and my grandfather and myself, we've been running small businesses in the area for um, decades and decades, and so we know the district really well. So there are a lot of differences. So I think understanding, of course, the different issues that District 9 faces. One of the major issues that I know that the voters of District 9 really care about is the issue of, will I support law enforcement? Because we're a border district, and so we see the bad policies of Oregon, the liberal policies of Oregon, especially on drugs and light on crime, those type of things. They start to spill over into Idaho, and so Payette County, for example, is kind of a hot spot, New Plymouth, Fruitland area, for crime. I was having a conversation with the former coroner. We were replacing him. He was retiring, and he said 20 years ago the 90% of the deaths in Payette County were good deaths. An older uh, person passing away with their children by their bedside. But he said now 80 to 90% of deaths in Fayette County are drug and crime related, and in just a 20-year span. And so a lot of folks really care about that. I think that's one of the number one issues is law enforcement. Are we going to be tough on crime? And then some of the other ones are what are we going to do about our educational system? We want our kids to learn um, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Why are we dealing with all of this other woke uh, nonsense in education? Why is there, Marxism being taught in school? So those are some of the other issues. Parental authority is a and in education is a big issue among folks in District 9 as well. We're a very conservative district, very pro-life. I would wager to say 80% of this district would identify as pro-life, and probably at least 70% would be very strongly pro-life. And I doubt you're going to have more than 10%, probably less than that, are going to be on the spectrum of pro-choice, pro-abortion, on the issue of the sanctity of life. And so that's just kind of the makeup of our district. Um, Pretty conservative, possibly a little more moderate leaning, in general. But I would say that's the overall makeup of our district.
So from the outside looking in, District 9, it's interesting because, like you said, it's very conservative when it comes to things like abortion and presumably, the Second Amendment and,
Second Amendment,
other,
everyone's pro gun. Even the Democrats out here are pro
yeah.
gun. Like seriously.
But when it comes to, agriculture, for better or for worse, that industry has become really intertwined with government now, with oversight and subsidies and councils, and the whole illegal immigration issue with guest workers. Uh, and I see a split there within the Republican Party on all those issues. How involved should the government be? How much? How should money be used to subsidize or promote different industries or keep it running? And then, what's the role of making sure that there are enough guest workers, or what should we do about illegal immigrants? So, how do you navigate that environment?
It's a tricky one. I actually received a call from a gentleman he's a quite a large farmer in the Canyon County area, and he had several concerns. One of them was this issue of illegal immigration, and he feels very strongly that we need to make some concessions on it because in his opinion, the agriculture industry will tank in Idaho. Will not stand up if we were not able to continue employing many different immigrants who are here illegally. That was some of the concerns he had, and honestly, everyone feels like how they feel about the issue is what District 9 feels about the issue. But it's not true. There are many people that feel just as strongly the opposite. That if you are here illegally, you should not have any driving privileges. You should be immediately hauled back to your home country and deported, right? And so it's a tricky issue because people feel very strongly both either way. So I'm obviously out in the district all the time, and that's a major issue that people talk about is illegal immigration. And I would have to say that the folks who are for, let's say, leaving the illegal immigrants alone, they're for leaving them alone, letting them continue to work on the farms and the dairies. I understand. I feel their pain. I understand where they're coming from, where they're saying, "Hey, some of these programs are extremely hard to get through. We can't get the workers we need, and so on." And so they just, a lot of them will kind of turn the blind eye and just keep going. So I hear that, I understand it, but I would have to say that opinion is in the minority. It is in the minority of the average citizen. Now, I would say it probably be in the majority in the agriculture industry, but if you were to actually number the amount of folks that are in ag versus in non-ag, um, because ag is, they stretch over large portions of areas. The number is probably um, a smaller portion for sure. Most You're going to find that most folks in town are the ones who really care a lot more. Rural towns such as Weiser, Payette, Fruitland, New Plymouth. That's where you really find a heavy opposition to illegal immigrants having any privileges in Idaho, because they believe it's going to encourage more if we start granting any kind of privilege or immunity. And it's really in the bigger farms, not even the smaller farms, the smaller mom and pop farms. They're Because they're doing a lot of the labor themselves. They feel like that the illegal migrant workers compete with them, whereas it's usually the larger farmers. From what I see, the larger farms, 500 to 3,000 acres or more. That's where a lot of them, I think, lean very heavily on that cheaper labor, and to them, it's it's a necessity. And so I would say it's probably in the minority opinion, but it's definitely a strong opinion, and both feel like their opinion represents District 9.
Hmm.
So I continue to give long-winded answers.
Yeah, that's good. It's sharing your heart. I was just double checking. The Farm Bureau came out with their endorsements, and in your district, in the contested House seat, they've endorsed the challenger, but for your race, they've endorsed you. So um, I assume that means you have conversations and communications with the organizations that represent farmers and the different industries.
Yeah, so it is interesting. I was a farmer reached out to me today and just said, "Hey, I just wanted to have a conversation with you." And I don't recall which packet, but which name it was, but he said there was the organization connected with Farm Bureau um, had has endorsed my opponent,
Hmm.
and he had raised in the board meeting, why is this? Why are we two sister organizations? One's endorsing Shippy, and the other one's endorsing his challenger. How does this work? And they had made the comment that it had to do with sign placement. That because my signs were with a candidate that they did not like, that they were going to then endorse my challenger. And it was interesting because it didn't really have to do with the actual policies that I would support or not support when regarding ag. In fact, they've never reached out to me. I've not received. So Idaho Farm Bureau is actually the only ag organization that has reached out to me, and has heard what I had to say, and they very easily and quickly said, "Hey, you align with our philosophies. We want to endorse you." They donated to the campaign quite large as well, and so that was very grateful for that. And for so he's like, and this farmer's a supporter of mine, and he's trying to wrap his head around this. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense, and it has to do more. It sounds like with kind of a, I don't want to say revenge, but but it has to do with sign placement. And I find that really interesting that there are a lot of people that I'll come across and they say, "Yeah, I'm supporting you, and I'm supporting shirts," and they they really don't care who signs with who. They've done their research. They vet people on an individual basis and not in camps. But there are a lot of people. I've actually I was told by somebody twice now that he believed I'm the better candidate, but he's in my challenger's camp, and so he's just going to stick with it,
Hmm.
and that's how he's going to run the course. And so, and he said, "Hey, everyone's tribal, Brandon, and so we're just going to run the course." So that's kind of what we're facing out there in District 9. But it's the farmers are very supportive of me. They know my background. I don't personally work in ag, but my background is one of being in ag. I used to farm with my grandfather, and the Shippies have always worked really closely with farmers. So we understand the agricultural industry. When it comes to the issue of farm subsidies, those type of things, I've been very clear, and I was very clear with Farm Bureau as well, that as I read their philosophy, I really appreciate some of their positions. It's very as far as the overall philosophy of government. Um, Farm subsidies have always hurt farmers. They've always hurt farmers. In fact, I've talked to farmers personally in district that said we 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 do not like to take subsidies because it goes against our own personal principles. And I've talked to a lot of farmers who said this, but they said it's really hard to opt out of them because if I don't take them, my neighbor has an advantage over me, and then he buys my farm. There are a lot of farmers who say no, we should either stand on your own 2 feet. If you can't make it, you can't make it. That's how the free market works. If it's not working, you find out a more efficient way to farm. You find whatever it is, that the free market just regulates itself. And so a lot of these subsidies have really hurt a lot of farmers. They do pervert the free market often, where maybe they're going to subsidize a corn crop, so everybody wants to grow the corn because they
Yeah.
get a guaranteed $20 a bushel of whatever the number might be, rather than making 18 for the wheat. And so now they've got a glut in the market, and they got to pay them to plow their fields in, whatever it might be. Government subsidies, they're not subject to the the free market, which is the best gauge for knowing what's the supply and what's the demand out there. So there are a lot of problems with farm subsidies beyond the fact that it is a redistribution of wealth. It's people receiving money that they didn't earn, and at its basic on its basic principle, it is a form of socialism. It is something that I know Frederick Bastiat in the law would have condemned very heavily, because it is taking from one class and giving to another, which fundamentally he calls legal plunder, using the power of the law to forcibly take money from some and to redistribute it to others. And so there are a lot of problems with it. Some of these issues are really hard to deal with overnight. I was dealing with, if I can just continue into another thread real quick. One of the issues we're hearing a lot on the campaign trail as well is in the senior citizen centers, and also the Meals on Wheels. They're dealing with a lot of issues because they've been subsidized for a long time, like their meals have been. For example, Meals on Wheels gets 425 for as a reimbursement for their meals, and these go out to folks who absolutely have no one who can cook for them, and they cannot cook for themselves. So basically, they would probably starve. And so these Meals on Wheels take care of them, the elderly, and so they used to get $4. I think it was like $4 back in like 2004 or something was the last time they had it raised, and they just recently had to go to like four and a quarter. But it cost them about 12.50 for a meal, and so the rest of it is made up of grants and from foundations and fundraising and whatever it is. Well, they haven't received a penny. A lot of these have not received a penny since January, and so they're all kind of at the end of their rope, and they're at a point where a lot of these people who are actually depending on the program possibly could go hungry. And so there's a lot of issues surrounding that. I met with a number of them. They expressed their concerns to a regional manager of the program, and a lot less money, from my understanding, a lot less money is going into the program because a lot of it stays in the agency itself because of it costs more to run to employ folks in the agency. So there are a lot of issues there. My point to them when they ask what's your solution for this, Shippy, as you step into the Senate, what is your solution for this? And my first answer was socialism always leads to poverty. It always leads to starvation. That when you depend on the government for your sustenance, you're going to end there. Almost in every case, it's just a dangerous system to rely on. And so the issue they're facing right now is they've grown up on this idea that we work hard all our lives, and then we just turn ourselves over to government support, and we've dealt that with Social Security, which is not a good retirement plan. It's been a bad idea. It was a con job. It did not work, and And now the problem is there are so many people on it and depend on it. You can't just shut that off because people will actually starve. They will lose their homes. They will go, they will freeze. They will be put out of their homes, whatever it might be. So these are the issues we're facing because we've been on a socialist system in a lot of ways for probably a good 80 to 100 years in a lot of areas in the country. And so it's one of those things where you can't turn it off overnight because people will actually starve. But at the end of the day, it's the job of the church. It's the job of good families. It's the job of private or nonprofit organizations, charitable organizations to support the poor and the needy. Government is not a good charitable organization. It always does a bad job. It's inefficient. Less money makes it to the poor. When you give a church $100, 110 makes it to the poor. When you give a government agency $100, $10 makes it to the poor. And I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but that's the point of government does really well in certain issues that it is designed to do is just protect your individual rights and properties, not violate it and redistribute it. So these are some of the fundamental issues, but the problem is the next generation is being raised up with the same mindset. So I think we need to have an approach to it. How we're going to fix this in the long term, where I'm talking generationally, because this is not a long term, this is not a good, sustainable path forward to keep going like this. We have to have a good long term, multi generational plan to wean ourselves off of these socialist ideas and come back to a free market capitalist system where government is in its proper lane and it is doing justice in society. It's protecting individual rights and property. It's doing those limited things that it does well, so that the free market and free people can flourish with those things in place. Without law and order, we would not flourish. We would have anarchy and destruction. We know that. And so, but then what are the short-term issues? We do have a problem of people are going to starve. And so how do we keep the lights on, so to speak, but recognize this is not a good long-term solution? And so those are some of the issues we're working through out here in the district. And it's been good being able to bring a lot of people to the table that actually have a lot of different opinions and yet still, work my hardest to stick to principle and explain why I stand on my principles and why it's good long term. Because a lot of times what we can see is just the immediate future. What are our needs for today? But we also have to think long term. What are the future ramifications for this? And that's why it's so vital that we stick with good principles of good government. Otherwise, we're just a leaf in the wind.
And long-term thinking, unfortunately, is not something you often see in politics because, I mean, you would have to come back 2 years from now and get reelected, and so it's easier just to go for the short term. But
That's it.
speaking of long and short term, I know you've got to go to some events, and I've appreciated your time. Do you have anything we didn't cover or closing thoughts?
Well, I just appreciate you having me on. We're being we are being positive about this race. I try not to be arrogant about it. It's in the Lord's hands. I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I believe in the sovereignty of God. He is in control of the outcome of this race. We're doing everything that we can to win the race, and I think we're doing a really good job. We've really set ourselves up into to to have a good momentum moving into April and May. But the outcome is in the Lord's hands. We do believe we're going to win it. We're not saying that arrogantly. We think that's in the position we're in, but we'll see how it goes. My goal is to serve the people of District 9. That's been one of the major messages that we have shared on the campaign trail. A lot of people are really excited about it because I am approachable. I'm willing to talk, but I'm willing to listen, and that's something that people really appreciate. That they say, "Hey, I appreciate you because you're humble." And I hate talking about this because it feels like I'm bragging about the pride of my humility. I'm very humble, right? It feels very odd to talk about your humility. But at the same time, it is by the grace of God, I am humble enough to listen to others. But yet I believe that I am principled enough and disciplined enough that I will take what concerns that people have and then fold that into a principled approach to government. And I'm not going to make everyone happy. And in fact, if I'm making anyone happy, I probably need to make no one happy, and then I'm doing the right thing essentially. But at the same time, compromise is always the go-to, and I think compromise is wrong. I think um, whenever we compromise, we always slide left, and I think we need to move that Overton window. We need to understand. We need to go back to where we were 50 years ago. Socially speaking, I believe in the traditional family. I believe in God created male and female. These are old ideas. These are not radical ideas. These are not far right wing ideas. These are normal ideas. And if somebody is a radical, if somebody is a far anything radical, it's the progressive ideas that have been pushed on us. If you were to teleport anybody from 50 years ago, they would say these new ideas are absolutely radical, and they are very destructive to society. But anyway, I do have to go, but I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to more conversation. I always appreciate talking with you, and I like a lot of your pieces, Brian. I really do, and I'm being honest here. There are very few journalists that I have encountered in Idaho that actually give an honest look at the issue at hand. Almost everyone is trying to is propagandize me. They're trying to convince me of something rather than just tell me the facts. And so I've appreciated that you are very honest. Highly recommend your work that you do. I know you work on a lot of conservative issues, and I know you're a strong conservative, but at the same time, I do feel like you are very honest when you approach an issue. And I see that on the right, I recognize there are guys on the right, there are guys that are conservative that I really don't trust their journalism because they're very biased in their approach. And so appreciate you a lot.
Brandon Shippy, running for state senate in District 9. Thank you.